Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we need to talk about a pretty huge Evander Kane update surrounding 6 NHL teams that are reportedly in on him, as well as scouting him during his time in the AHL. Now, quite frankly, there's been a lot going on with Kane over the past couple of weeks, as per usual, but he was recently put on waivers, going back to the AHL, and of course was not claimed with his monstrous contract. But since he's been in the AHL, there's been 6 teams that we know have scouted Evander Kane and could potentially want a trade. But when it comes to Evander Kane, who are the most likely teams to actually want to trade? Who are the teams scouting him right now? And what could an Evander Kane trade actually look like if it does get done this season? Watch till the end for all the latest trade news and all the latest trade rumors, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are new. 55% of the people that are watching are not subscribed. If you like hockey, this channel is the place to be. Now, before we get into everything today, I first want to talk about our sponsor for today's video and the new Topps Skate app that has revolutionized my obsession with trading and collecting hockey cards. It is a great way to collect hockey cards digitally. There's so many unique sets, so many unique players. I got this Nikolai Ehlers card for free without basically doing anything, and I got it in one of the first packs I opened. And there's so much variety in terms of collective funds, so many great missions as well. As you collect players and as you get packs, you're able to unlock missions and unlock rewards that way, which gives you free coins, and you get free coins and missions all the time as well without even having to spend anything on the app. But by far, my favorite feature of the Topps Skate app that truly sets it apart is the ability to trade with any other player on the app. If you need a specific card, for instance, I really wanted this Adam Fox card, you can go out there, trade with other players, give cards in return, and complete your collection that way. It's such an amazing experience with the missions, with the trading, with the collectibles, and I highly recommend it. Download it wherever you get your apps, on the App Store, wherever it might be. Join me and trade with me at Gravity on the app, and I'll see you guys on the best hockey card app there is out there right now. Now, we all know just how good Evander Kane can be when he is on the ice and isn't a complete nuisance. In 2021 with San Jose, he was pretty fantastic. In 56 games played, got 22 goals, 27 assists, and 49 points. But you can't really talk about Evander Kane without talking about the actual person at hand here, because whenever it comes to teams, whenever it comes to teammates, whoever he comes across, it seems like they just end up hating him at the end. And we got reports this last year at San Jose that the entire team hated him pretty much. Maybe only Timo Meier was kind of like okay with him at points, but the rest of the team just despised him and hated his guts. But team after team and time after time, it feels like Evander Kane has a short leash until he's eventually gone to somewhere else. So I do think if any team is going to trade for him, it's going to be a short leash and probably a player that you're only going to be able to keep for a couple of years at a time. Now, as I was saying before, there were 6 NHL teams that were there for Evander Kane's first game with the AHL San Jose Barracuda that ended up scouting him and were interested in potentially bringing him on. Now, one of the main things I was pretty surprised by was that the Vancouver Canucks were not one of those teams. Now, obviously, they're going through a lot of big managerial changes, but one of the big rumors we were talking about with Evander Kane the past couple weeks was potential interest from the Vancouver Canucks, but it seems like that isn't quite the case anymore. Now, the 6 teams that are interested and are scouting Evander Kane in the AHL right now go as follows: the Boston Bruins, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Detroit Red Wings, the Nashville Predators, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Dallas Stars. All 6 of these teams were in attendance for Evander Kane's first game, and again, have interest in scouting him and potentially bringing him on. Now, an interesting thing about that one AHL game that all these teams were scouting is that Evander Kane had 0 points and was a -1. So it's not like it was a highlight reel show for Evander Kane to show all these scouts what he was made of. He really wasn't that impactful, and that is an interesting thing. But we were hearing a lot recently over the past few days about how teams were desperately wanting to have a third team involved, like a team like the Arizona Coyotes, to retain some salary and get Evander Kane's deal as low as humanly possible. He still has a lot of the years left, and the deal right now is $7 million. So even at 50% retained, it's still $3.5 million for a guy that is a pretty huge wild card, both on and off the ice. Again, Kane hasn't really played that much over the past year, and that is going to need some conditioning and some getting used to on Kane's part, just with the player at hand here. But if teams were able to get that deal down to around $2 million or $1.8 million perhaps, it feels like a lot more teams would be involved. Elliotte Friedman was mentioning a few days ago how if they're able to get get around that 2 million mark, there would be a ton more teams available and likely scouting him as the days go by. Now, the first team that was mentioned here that I found exceedingly fascinating and honestly one of the most interesting fits for Evander Kane was the Boston Bruins. And in a potential trade, I think there's a lot of options for the Boston Bruins to go out here. And we've been talking about for them this season how much of a middling team they've been, how winning has not come as easy as we would have expected. And I think a lot of reasons for that have been that offense not really consistently putting in the work that it should. And Evander Kane on paper would certainly help that. And he does still play that style of Boston Bruins game. But I do think when it comes to Boston, the situation is extremely interesting too, because they're a team that is trying to kind of go for it these next couple of years, and obviously Evander Kane doesn't have the longest leash in the world. I'm wondering if maybe Boston tries to go for it with Evander Kane, and if they don't win the cup over the next couple of years, maybe they just go for a mini rebuild and then they're able to cut Evander Kane after the fact. That might be what they're going for here, and if they do trade for Evander Kane, I think that's the style and the route they're trying to build. Now, an actual trade that would be involved here, I think it definitely would have to go around $2 million, 2.5 to actually make this deal work for Boston theoretically. So you would likely have a third team involved. Let's say it is the Arizona Coyotes. I think the Boston Bruins would end up giving a fourth away to San Jose, a fourth to Arizona to make this happen, or maybe a fifth to Arizona perhaps to make this happen. I feel like that would be around the lines of what you're seeing. I don't think San Jose is going to get much for Kane in the end, but I do think Boston is going to be a team that's after them and could be the team to actually get this deal done. Now, speaking of middling teams that could potentially go for it, the next team that was mentioned here was the Pittsburgh Penguins, who, if we're talking about teams that need retained salary, Pittsburgh definitely needs retained salary on this Kane deal. So I'm going to say it goes as low as it possibly can, around that 1.7, 1.8 mark. But I do think when it comes to Evander Kane, on paper, he would be interesting in Pittsburgh, but it might be an even shorter leash than what he would have in Boston. It seems like this year might be possibly one of the last years that Pittsburgh goes for it. Chris Letang will be a UFA. Who knows what Evgeny Malkin is doing when it comes to his health. So Pittsburgh's kind of in a weird position now where they might have to just try to go for it. And Evander Kane would be an interesting add at least for one season to see if it works out. And I think it could definitely on that Pittsburgh power play that desperately needs some more juice added onto it. I feel like Pittsburgh is one of those teams that is going to make a move, but if it is Evander Kane, I would not be too surprised either. Even if it might not be the best fit in the world, I feel like for Pittsburgh, their options are kind of limited right now. And again, their window is rapidly closing as we speak. Now, I'm going to be honest here. I'm talking about Pittsburgh, Boston, two teams that I think could make sense for Evander Kane. This next team, in my opinion, thinking about it right now, makes absolutely zero sense, and that is the Detroit Red Wings. Why would the Detroit Red Wings ever want Evander Kane? I know they're somewhat in a playoff position right now, but with everything that Kane has done, everything that he's gone through, all the teammates eventually hating him in the end, why would you want that type of presence on a Detroit team that's finally getting over the curve, finally has great young players, and finally has a great future? That to me makes no sense, and I feel like for Steve Yzerman, for Detroit, it's kind of uncharacteristic for them, in my opinion. We look at this Detroit team, how young and great and skilled they are, but Evander Kane being there, I just don't think would fit whatsoever. I personally would not want him around Lucas Raymond or Moritz Seider. That would be absolutely disastrous in my opinion, and although the team would be better and might make the playoffs if they have Evander Kane, I don't think for Detroit and their long-term future, it would be worth it whatsoever. I don't want them to even touch Lucas Raymond or Moritz Seider and have Evander Kane somewhat damage them whatsoever. I don't want that locker room to be in a worse position than they are in right now, because it has been getting a lot better. And I feel like for Detroit to add a player like that will be pretty bad mismanagement. Now, this next team is absolutely hilarious. And when I saw this next team being involved, I was like, there is no way this is real, but it was real. It was real. The next team that was interested in scouting Evander Kane was the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, on paper, sure, I guess if you could add a guy who scored 22 goals a couple years back for $1.8 million, you see what you got. But it's pretty uncharacteristic of the Leafs, in my opinion, to trade for a guy like Evander Kane. They've been trying to improve that locker room. They've been trying to improve the veteran leadership and the true greatness of that locker room over the last couple of years with guys like Jake Muzzin and Nick Foligno and a bunch of different guys. And I feel like Evander Kane being on that team would be kind of the worst case scenario. I mean, you're trying to get guys like Marner and Matthews to be more mature and to grow up as leaders and to be better NHL players come playoff time. time, yet Evander Kane is pretty much the opposite of that. And I just think for that locker room, for that franchise, to trade for Evander Kane after all the work they've tried to do would be pretty unfortunate, and again, would be a pretty big step backwards in my opinion. I feel like, yes, on the ice he would be fantastic for them, but I don't think he'd solve their issues, and I don't think playoff-wise he's going to do that much either. He hasn't done that much in the past, and I don't think he'd do that much in Toronto at the same time. Now, unfortunately, we have to move on to the last team involved here, and yep, the last team that scouted Evander Kane was my favorite team, the Dallas Stars, and yeah, on paper, I can see why the Stars want more goal scoring. Yes, they desperately need goal scoring. They need some better depth, and Evander Kane on paper would be good for that. Now, they're kind of in the same situation a little bit as Pittsburgh and Boston, where it's a pretty open secret that they're trying to go for it over these next couple of years, and they want to be contending while their old guys are still actually playing in this league. So I get why you'd get Evander Kane maybe on a short leash to try and juice up that offense a little bit. But at the same time, you also, on the other side of the spectrum, have a ton of super young players. Heiskanen, Roope Jason Robertson, a ton of extremely valuable young talent that I don't want to see get meddled with. I don't want to see get tainted with Evander Kane's just horrible mismanagement and teammate management. I just don't want to see that happen in Dallas, and I don't also want to see a situation where they're stuck with him for the next 4 years somehow. Even though on paper, yes, he'd be good, stay away. Get somebody else for the love of everything holy. My goodness, please, Dallas. But at the very least, we now know that there are a ton of teams out there that are wanting Evander Kane, scouting him right now, and potentially making a trade happen this year, which is a lot more concrete answers than we had a couple of weeks ago at the very least. So now we know some teams that are actually involved that could want Evander Kane. But I do think if we do see a 3-team trade, I think there will be maybe a little bit higher picks than some people do expect. But I do think for San Jose to retain half of that deal for the next 4 seasons, for Arizona to do the same, I feel like the team trading for Evander Kane would still have to give up some pretty decent picks, at least a 4th-round pick to one of the teams in my opinion, or if not San Jose. I feel like that would have to be a part of an Evander Kane trade. I don't think there's going to be any other players involved. I think it'll be just squarely picks, but I think for a team like San Jose to get out of the Evander Kane deal at any cost possible would be the best thing for them right now. They need to get Evander Kane out of that franchise, because at this rate, he's as good as gone. We'll see what happens, but it seems like Evander Kane will likely be dealt sometime this year. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Comment down below what you guys think of these Evander Kane trade rumors. Who do you see trading for Evander Kane? What do you see the trade looking like? Do you want to see your favorite team trade for Evander Kane? Let me know your thoughts. Make sure you share this video with your friends, get all the trade rumors out there, and click on this card for all of my trade rumor content right on playlist. Subscribe, like, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day, and goodbye.